Okay, guys, welcome to this fortnight's edition of Celts in the Caribbean, Bon Air's #1 podcast. You're here with Alan and...
I am Yunan. Welcome, everyone.
Welcome, guys. We have got a special edition for you this week. So, usually what we do is we like to wade through all the terrible stuff that's going on in the news and find you the most amazing headlines that are true from the week. But this week we've just been like spammed in the face with the same headline over and over. No matter how deep, it seems to be all anyone's talking about is coronavirus.
Exactly. So we thought we would bring you pretty much the same spam. So we enticed an expert to help us in breaking it down.
I know I'm as shocked as you guys are. We managed to get an expert on the show, so we've got an interview coming up for you with from Zach. He is
he's
his credentials.
He's a PhD in biology, and he is a lecturer in Texas, and he's going to be with us to discuss or debunk myths of the coronavirus.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about things like if chemtrails and 5G are affecting this, or if you snort a ton of cocaine, will that help? And it wouldn't be a Celts in the Caribbean if we didn't discuss Pornhub have got involved with the coronavirus help.
Exactly.
So we do have a story there.
We're going to discuss the important stuff.
Obviously.
So we get some factual information from Zach on what is good and bad, what is causing it, what is not causing it, what is going to help you fight it, and what is not going to help you fight it. So
it's a great episode. So stay tuned. It's worth a watch. And I think we're getting out there to the masses because we've got our first troll, which I think that means we're
You're
getting
doing
there.
something right.
We're doing something right. So I can't remember her name.
Nah, neither can I. I also can't remember her name or her comment other than Hitlerites, but other than that,
that's not really the angle we're going for.
No, I think she totally just didn't understand anything. But
I did have to translate it from Slovakian, so it might have not been truthful. And I'd like to think we're the exact opposite of that. Although we're not entirely PC, but it is for humor, but we don't mean to offend anyone. It's just that we're just trying to be entertaining.
Also take this one with a pinch of salt. No matter how good Zach is, it's not exactly coming from the World Health Organization, so or the CDC. So
true, and we don't mean to bring because obviously this is affecting. It's 100,000 people around the world have contracted it as today, and that's going to affect like all the families, and so we're not making light of the situation. We're just trying to bring a little bit of entertainment.
We're light of the douchebags who are manipulating the situation.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
Alex Jones.
Exactly. Yeah. So enjoy.
All right. Cheers, guys. All right, Yunan, do you want to introduce Zach then?
So, yeah, okay.
Welcome to the first edition of Zach Attack.
Exactly.
No, Yunan wrote that. We're not good writers.
Perfect. No, that was actually Alan. So, welcome to our first edition of the Zach Attack. This week, we're going to be talking about COVID conspiracies. Across from me is Alan, and we have all the way from Texas is Zach.
Yeah.
Hey, Zach.
Hey, Zach.
Hey, guys.
So I think the most important thing to know about COVID-19 is that it fits really well with "Come On, Eileen." And once you hear that, you can't say COVID-19 without being COVID-19.
I was singing microphone in the shower today, so yeah.
Oh, dear.
So we we've been coming across quite a few conspiracy theories, and we would like to know if they can be debunked or whether or not there's a massive conspiracy theory from the government that is taking over.
Yeah.
So Zach is going to ask our questions on it.
just do yes, both, probably all of them.
Yeah, here at
all of them.
Here at Celts in the Caribbean, we want to make sure that everything that we put out is quality information. So we've been hearing a lot of rumors about how to cure COVID-19 and why it was caused. So we've brought in an expert, but for those of you listening, we probably want to point out this is not medical advice. This is purely to try and debunk some of the conspiracy theories. So
yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Like all of this around, like none of this should be something that you take to the bank.
Disclaimer.
Exactly. Yeah. Zach, you are
a super fan of Celts in the Caribbean.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm catching up. I think I'm getting into the fall now. It's been my commute listen. So.
Oh no shit. Okay.
Thanks for sticking with it, because well, to all our listeners that have stuck with us for the last few months, we kind of go by the thing that perfection is definitely it doesn't help productivity. So if we were looking for perfection, we probably wouldn't have done an episode yet. But I think our sound is getting better. The last couple of episodes are a bit more listenable. Yeah. I've figured out a few tricks so that your head doesn't explode when Ewan laughs.
Exactly.
But, yeah.
Can you do that in real life?
It does a little, yeah.
I mean, no, does it actually help with Union in real life, not wanting to have your head pop when he starts?
Exactly. Do you know, I don't know if there's something for it. Maybe it's just social quarantining. I just have to spend like 5 meters away from everyone at all times, just so as I can laugh.
Yeah, when we start our day, we usually do a big manly hug and rub our beards together and stroke each other's faces. But today it was jazz hands. Like, I'm missing the human touch.
Yeah, which brings us on to the first way to cure the coronavirus: masturbation.
Yeah, well, I mean, go for it. What can it hurt, right?
I'm invincible, I'm pretty sure.
I've got the arms of a fucking tree surgeon.
Well, at least one arm.
Well, at least one.
Yeah.
So is there any truth to masturbation can either cure or stop you getting coronavirus?
So I looked that one up real quick, and there's a little bit of a bump in your white blood cell count. Whether or not that actually makes you better at fighting off disease is debatable. But how big of a bump that is probably not meaningful in any real way. It just shows that there's some kind of a link between your happy time and the chemicals that control the immune system.
How long does this bump last for? Do you know? Is it like just
they did the measure right before? Yeah, they did the measure like right before the guys masturbated and then right after. So I don't know that they tracked them over time. But I mean,
I'm just trying to work out how much I have to masturbate
exactly, like,
in order to keep.
If you go grocery shopping, do you have to like inoculate yourself while you're shopping?
Is that the real reason that everybody's running out and buying so much toilet paper?
Exactly.
Oh, I think we figured something out here.
It all becomes clear.
Oh God.
I mean, I think you're thinking about it the wrong way. It's not how much. It's really like how little can you get away with, right?
Oh.
Glass half full, glass half empty kind of an approach.
Yep. Yeah.
But it probably doesn't do much of anything for your susceptibility to coronavirus, because the cells that you see in the blood that would be involved with that first part of it are a pretty specific subset. And a little bump up here or there may give you, a probably undetectable level of increased sensitivity to new diseases that are coming into your body, but realistically, that's not going to have any meaningful impact on the ground for people's day-to-day experience. I think it's one of the things. It's just a cool bit of research. You're probably a lot better off if you go back to like the prostate cancer link.
Okay, what's that?
So like masturbation, just in general, especially as guys get a little bit older, is associated with a reduced risk of prostate cancer later on in life.
No way.
Yeah. So I mean, that's one of the probably the biggest single arguments, just to, you know, keep
Stay
you friendly
healthy.
with yourself.
Yeah.
Well, Pornhub, we do like to mention almost every episode because so I can put it in the title and people like to search it and find our show. But Pornhub are doing their bit. They have they've actually offered their premium service for free to everybody in Italy while they're self-quarantining. So
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, so to those guys that are listening in Italy, check out Pornhub. You've got a free premium service on the go. And X Hamster, which is a porn site that I have not used in 20 years. Wait, yeah.
It's like the Napster of porn.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was still around, but they've got some adult content, like coronavirus specific adult content. So where the porn stars are wearing
face masks.
Just getting fetishized already.
They use like hand gel for lubricant or something.
I didn't track it down yet.
Maybe we could direct some stuff. Maybe I don't know. Maybe that's a conversation.
Well,
for another time, but
their content is going viral.
Excuse the pun.
Which is not something you want to hear in the porn industry.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we've let's talk about how we're catching it. I've heard from a very unreliable source that there's a connection with 5G and the coronavirus and possibly even chemtrails. Have you heard about this?
Yeah, I saw both of those too. I think that like the very like basest connection between 5G and getting sick of any kind is that any radio frequency is radiation. And so it's someone just saying, oh, it's radiation, therefore it must give you cancer. And the article I saw on that, they argued that it wasn't even really a virus, that it was a cancer-y kind of a symptom that developed from it, which is
kind of giving
super
you
easy to test and totally false.
Epileptic attacks and falling over to like that's what they were.
Yeah, so it was affecting the frequency of the brain rather than it actually being some kind of virus.
Like it's like the whole thing about brain cancer and using cell phones because you've got a device that releases radiation by your head, therefore it's going to give you brain cancer. But when you look at like just the amount of exposure that you're getting from radio frequencies in the air versus, let's say you travel and walk through an x-ray machine or one of those body scanners. I mean, right there, you've pretty much, in that one dose, hit what you're going to encounter over probably, I would say, orders of magnitude more than what you'd encounter over the course of your life. Now, one interesting thing would be when you're talking about really high voltage electronics, like those really big transmission lines, I don't think they really had them on Bon Air, but when you see major power grids, those have been associated with different diseases. And I don't quote me on this thing I'm being recorded on, but I believe there was a connection between non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and proximity to those, like living right underneath one, not like a mile away. But there were cases that were linked with that. But you're talking about massive amounts of electricity at incredibly high voltages and constant daily exposure to that.
But the correlation to a viral impact is totally different than something like that, right? I mean,
absolutely, yeah. I mean, the virus, it's already been characterized, the genome on it. I mean, it's amazing. Actually, it's the fastest they've ever been able to figure out the genome of a virus. Within days they had it, because our sequencing technology has just gotten so quick and relatively inexpensive. It's why you can send your DNA off to, what is that,
21andMe?
Yeah
23andMe, sorry. Sorry,
no, you went back to the Pornhub thing.
21 and step mom.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so no, like that's they know what it is. It's actually kind of crazy. It's the new name for it, what they're going to stick with is SARS-CoV-2, which is I forget what all SARS stood for, but it was acute respiratory syndrome, coronavirus, and then the one was the one that hit us, and I believe it was 2008, 2009. And now this one, it's not even different enough to be a separate species. It's basically a subspecies of that SARS type virus.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very clearly, they've got images of it from scanning electron microscopes. They've got the genetics on it, and the transmission is really similar. They're pretty sure the origin species now. So yeah, I would say like there's just no connection with 5G.
Yeah, because I think, do we have 5G on Bonaire?
No, not yet.
No? Okay.
No.
Well, my next door neighbor has called his Wi-Fi 5G to make, so I guess to make it look like he's like ahead of the game on it. Yeah. But yeah, so Bonaire, as of the 14th of March 2020, we don't have any cases yet, and we just closed the. We just kind of closed the airport to European travel, which is about 80% of our travel, and closed it to.
Is that much?
Well, I mean, that's 2 flights a day compared to 4 or 5 flights over the weekend from the States. Huh. I just pulled that out of my arse. I don't know. But
well, it sounded believable.
You're so nice.
Important thing.
And the cruise ships have just stopped. So, but there has been a wave of ways that they're trying to like sort of do this. What's the phrase word just now? Social distancing.
Social distancing.
So we've seen cancellations of pretty much all the football, the NBA, festivals are getting canceled. Any kind of large gatherings, like it's worldwide. A lot of things are. The Six Nations this weekend was canceled. The under 20s still played.
They don't matter though. The under 20s.
They don't.
Useless. But what else is there though? I mean, we're talking about
Well, I think Zach's wearing a NASA T-shirt, so it's not only affecting things on the ground; it's also affecting things up in space. So the Mars rover has also been delayed. That was meant to be launched in July of this year, and they've moved it to 2022. So we've got a bit of a wait till the Mars rover gets launched. I mean, they're citing coronavirus as one of the reasons, but I think there's probably
they use multiple. The coronavirus because they already had like massive issues.
It could have been. It's a pretty good excuse to go to your boss with, and be like, do you think the countries are going? Who's doing it right? Who's doing it wrong? Or are we looking at
Yeah, no, I was looking that up. So trying to get a handle on it. Right now, the last really big report the WHO released was at the end of February, like on the 28th, I want to say. And at that point, the cases were still were rising pretty quickly in newly affected countries. But some of the stuff from that article as well, and you go into the World Health Organization's website and they have that for free. It's actually pretty easy to read. And it has a lot of really good, solid information without the kind of narrative or spin that you see from people trying to get you to buy into their story. But with that data and the newer stuff, what they're seeing in China is the new cases are leveling off. And so it looks like China's response has actually been pretty successful. They're starting to see so initially, I think in the first month or so that it really was in a pandemic phase in Wuhan, they had something like a 17% fatality rate. And in the most recent time frame, they're down to a 0.7% fatality rate. So that could be because the more susceptible people died early, and then it's also probably because they're learning how to treat it. That's the problem with this is, as a novel virus, people really don't know how to treat it. They know roughly what these kinds of viruses will do, but we don't have any known drugs right off the bat that are particularly effective, and it's really about mitigating the most severe symptoms.
And maybe people are recognizing it earlier because now they know what the symptoms are, and they're getting maybe medical treatment a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
But I think new cases it was single figures now. It was 8 today and 19 yesterday. So they've really, I mean, that was from, at the height, it was a couple of thousand a day. So they've really reined it in.
A couple of days ago, even Spain 2 days ago it went up like 20%, right?
Oh, Europe's a different story. That's still going up and up. They're doubling.
Specifically China.
Specifically China has like a really.
I think. the China stuff really seems to suggest that I think that they got a lot of criticism legitimately for how they managed it early on, because it seemed like it was more about controlling information than it was about the disease. But by the time they realized how bad it was and really kicked it into high gear, what the WHO has been saying is they've been incredibly transparent. They've been releasing all of their, they sequenced the genome first. They sent it to everyone right off the bat. And they've been really transparent with their data sharing once this really hit the pandemic level. And so, there's arguments about how they managed it initially, but given that their infection rates are not just even leveling, but they're dropping, like they seem to have contained it, it suggests that their approach of just kind of going full tilt at it worked. But now you're seeing places in like Italy, they seem to be doing it well too. But their population is really old, and this virus is really hitting the elderly. And I think Italy has the oldest or second oldest population in Europe. So they're probably the most riskiest of all the countries.
But the best marinara.
Yeah.
Sure.
We did before we came online. We were watching a couple of conspiracy YouTube videos just to do a little bit of research, and there were some where there was like videos coming out of China where it looked like people were just dropping dead in the streets, and then there was people in hazmat suits like throwing people into the back of the vans and stuff. Do you think these are just they're pulled from movies, or is there any truth to these things? I think we've lost Zach for a little bit, so we're gonna pause there and we'll see if we can get him back online. Okay. Little technical difficulty, but we've got Zach back, and that rhymes. I like it.
It does.
Zach's back on the Zach Attack. So you were just saying you hadn't seen the videos that we were talking about where people were collapsing in the streets, but you had seen something else.
That one wasn't something I've encountered, but so I can't really speak well to it. But I would be really suspect of those videos. Not that China hasn't shown that it will take measures like that, but in this case, it doesn't seem that that's how they're treating the victims, because they set up these huge temporary hospitals in Wuhan. There's been coverage of those. Like, I don't think they're trying to hide the victims at this point.
So
again, early on, it was different. I think that was where they were more at the information control phase. But
so when you go down the rabbit hole, which we were talking about, because the conspiracy theories come up and then you read them and you get really nothing from it. But if you start to look into it, there's a lot of nonsense. And one of the things that we had seen a little while ago was about the hospitals that you've just mentioned. So they show these glass structures and so on that look really clinical and clean and so on, but in reality, according to their health ministers and the websites that they're showing the photos of, that they actually are pre-existing hospitals that they're showing, and they're like 600 miles away, again according to these conspiracy theorists. And what is actually there is shipping containers with bars on the windows. And then it's like, what is the comparison then between the videos that we talk about where they're shoving people in vans and then they put them into these shipping containers, and then all of a sudden you're like, Jesus, we're like a year behind ourselves, where everyone's talking about these work camps and so on. Like, that's quite crazy, right? I mean,
I don't know what they're actually building those temporary hospitals out of. The photos I've seen have looked,
legit,
fairly normal. What you would think of as like a triage center being set up in a space not intended for that, or not built for that purpose originally. The ones I saw looked like they were in office buildings.
They did have one collapse, but I think that was a makeshift. It was an old hotel or something that they'd made into a quarantine zone. So it wasn't one of the ones that they they popped up in 3 or 4 days.
So say you look at like older movies or any movies in reality, like Contagion or, for example, Outbreak.
Yeah.
Biggest thing for Outbreak and Dustin Hoffman was to find out who was patient zero. Is that a thing? And if that's the case, are they? Do you know if they're doing such a thing, or does that even help?
They tracked it down to the earliest confirmed case was a guy who was, I think, 55 in Wuhan. It does help in the sense of if you can figure out where and roughly when it started, that then allows you to model it better. Because now if you know when the early cases first started happening and where your cases are at now in the whole game, you know the growth of the virus, which can let you then predict how it's going to spread through your country into other countries. So it is really useful information. Having the absolute patient zero, probably not essential as long as you get down close enough to that beginning point. It is also helpful because you can get an idea of where it might have come from. And so this one, coronaviruses in general tend to be coming from bat reservoirs, and there's tons of the species of bat they think it came from. Tons of those they're really common in that part of China. And so having that patient zero may give you an idea of how it made the leap from one species to another. And in this case, it looks like it went from bats to possibly pangolins, which we know are pretty common in, they're endangered, I believe, or they're threatened.
Yeah, but it's like the world's most trafficked animal illegally. Yeah.
Especially in China and in those live markets, that gives an opportunity of animals to get really stressed. And just like humans, when animals are stressed, their immune system gets suppressed. And so that suppression of the immune system allows the virus to have a bigger impact on that animal than it would, which then allows it to potentially get to a high enough level to jump to humans. And so that's the thing where, have you heard that they find coronavirus in dogs?
Yeah, I heard that. There was like a couple of reported cases in China or something like that.
Yeah. So the virus can infect dogs, but it's a very, very low level infection to the point where it doesn't seem to be able to replicate enough to hit that threshold where it could then jump to humans. But with something like a pangolin, or if you look at the SARS coronavirus that happened in 2000, again, 8 or 9, somewhere in that range, that appears to have gone from bats to civets. And then civets in live animal markets likely had a potential to transmit it to humans. And those cross-species jumps are where you tend to see things get weird, because like in bats, it doesn't cause any symptoms whatsoever. In civets, they were unclear if you could ever detect if they were sick or not. They didn't actually have a lot of visible symptoms. But then when it hit humans, I think SARS had a mortality rate of about 8%, because the virus.
And how far behind is the COVID-19, or it's currently ahead? Is it?
How do you mean?
Well, you're saying the mortality rate is 8%. So you're looking at cases versus the amount of deaths.
Yeah. So SARS, I believe, confirmed cases was in the tens of thousands. I think it was like 60 or 70,000 confirmed cases. Whereas with COVID, we already have over 100,000 confirmed cases globally. Yeah. So the mortality rate, what they call the CFR, the crude fatality ratio, that right now for SARS, the most recent data globally is 3.4%. Depending on what country you're in, it varies. So I think Italy is around 6%. South Korea is around 0.6%. China started off really high, but is now really a lot lower. So we're still getting a idea of what the mortality will be for it. It looks to be reasonably less than SARS, but the problem is it also seems to be easier to transmit given how quickly it's increased in numbers.
Yeah.
So with a disease like this, you have two things to go in. One, how bad is it? Does it actually kill people all the time? And then the second part of it is, how easy is it to spread? Because you could have a really mild virus that only kills 1 out of 10,000 people. But if 3 billion people get it, that's a huge amount of deaths to deal with. Or you could look at something like MERS, the Middle East one that happened a few years ago, where it had a 34% mortality ratio, but I think only about 12,000 people got it. So it wasn't very contagious.
Was that like a livestock thing? Was that a pig thing, or?
I believe MERS was a pig one. The SARS one was a bat to civet. And then in 2003, there was the swine flu too that hit the US at least. I can't remember what it was like globally.
Well, we're talking about bats. I just wanted to know, in your opinion, how sorry, how on the money was Bane? He wore a mask. He locked down his cities, cancelled sporting events, and pretty much the root of the problem was a bat. So was he a visionary is what I'm asking.
He was misunderstood in his time.
It does. So unfortunately, Tom Hanks and his wife have contacted coronavirus. They seem to be okay. It's like a mild form. But it does seem to be another one of the Simpsons predictions. Like, we've had a lot of Simpsons predictions that have come true. And apparently I didn't watch the clip to see how close it is, but apparently the Simpsons have predicted Tom Hanks getting.
They did have an episode on a flu pandemic, but the shot that they've been using to say that like it was a coronavirus is doctored. The image that they took, it was Apocalypse Meow was the subcaption.
I love how you know it on the cuff. That's good.
I mean, I feel like they were close enough for government work. Like they predicted that pretty good.
They could have done 2 is at 5. Yeah, damn straight.
I feel like you need to do reaction videos for our shows and just be like, just sighing in the background when we just
oh god damn it,
so wrong. What are you guys talking about?
Have you seen?
We have good intentions.
The Alex Jones thing where they stopped him like trading on the silver serum that was killing COVID.
Oh god, that stuff is so. That stuff is morally reprehensible to begin with. Alex Jones is a horrible person.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, because he was pushing the Sandy Hook's conspiracy theory forever. I mean, to the point where like there are parents that committed suicide. At least one. I don't know about multiple, but at least one. They think in part to the hoax accusation they got that they're just method actors. But did you hear that Alex Jones got picked up for DWI in Austin here I think last week? He's a real stand-up guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't seem like a stand-up guy. Like someone you would get into a fight in a bar with. Really.
Yeah, he seems like somebody who would throw a punch and run away.
Exactly. Yeah.
But no, so that silver stuff is really dangerous. It also tends to be promoted with the bleach cures, which have been used by the anti-vaxxer movement. And some parents have given their kids bleach to try and treat autism, and it's really disturbing because it's capitalizing off of people's fear, their feeling of being unable to do anything to directly impact the situation, and giving them this silver bullet, pun intended, I guess.
Hey!
Yeah.
But after my own heart.
Yeah, you've got Eunice Ryder helping you.
I mean, unlike some of the things that you see with homeopathy, where it's basically a sugar pill and you have a placebo effect, this isn't even giving you the benefit of a placebo effect. It's actively hurting people. So yeah, there's nothing to suggest that silver-based solution has any impact, or the other one, the miracle mineral oil, the bleach-based one, and can in fact cause pretty severe damage.
There's actually, so you mentioned it, right? You said anti-vaxxer. This is not actually something I have on here, but this, like, surely does that give them now credence to say, hey, look,
don't call me Shirley.
Have been vaccinated, and we have been vaccinated against so many things. I mean, and this is still happening.
There's already so much misinformation on vaccines that is out there on a daily basis. And even the conversation about the flu vaccine and coronavirus is challenging because people don't quite understand the details. So we treat coronavirus like the flu, but it's not actually an influenza virus. It's the virus family. It's one of the things that creates flu-like symptoms. Most people actually have already had a coronavirus. About 15% of cold cases are a virus that is similar to SARS and the COVID stuff that we're seeing now.
Okay.
So the flu vaccine is important, especially for people that are at risk, like if you're immunocompromised or you're elderly. but it doesn't do anything for this particular virus. The way those work is the vaccines are training your immune system to look for a particular name tag on the viruses or on cells infected by a virus. And that name tag is pretty unique and pretty specific to each strain, which is why you have to get an annual flu vaccination, which is usually actually anywhere from, I think, 2 to 5 different strains of the virus. So those take about a year to make.
Oh, wow.
All right.
Sorry.
First case in Bon Air, I think. That's if you can't hear that.
Los Angeles here.
Yeah.
That was the entire Bon Air police department going past there.
Yeah. Someone sneezed.
Hopefully they didn't have any dogs in the back of the truck this time.
I think we're broaching close to the end of our minutes.
Yep. I have been too cheap to purchase the software that we're using for this, so we're using a free trial, which is going to end any moment. But before
I think they lifted that for the coronavirus. Like, there's a message that came in that they were lifting the 40-minute cap for maybe just schools. I can't remember.
But we could register as an educational facility.
We
surely.
This is very educational, and as you can see, it is the size of a small classroom.
And there are lots of kids hidden around.
Teach sewing for the evening.
Yeah, no. Are you running a sweatshop unit?
I am, Zach, but don't tell anyone.
This will never get out.
So we can close up, but so pandemic engulfs the world. Everybody catches COVID-19.
And Matt Damon saves everyone.
And Matt Damon said that drinking bleach doesn't work. Silver doesn't work. How about snorting cocaine? I've heard.
It hurt.
We'll do some tests on that, and we'll get.
At least you'll enjoy the outbreak.
I've also heard
that is the one bit of medical advice I will give. Just snort a bunch of cocaine if you think you're getting.
Yeah, just go nuts, guys.
Yeah.
We'll do some Celts in the Caribbean.
They don't
branded medicine.
They don't call
yeah.
Or I've also heard the heat helps. So I heard it get under a duvet, drink some tea, drink some soup, and just try and sweat. And it doesn't but that seems to be a
load of bullshit.
Load of bullshit.
Yeah, probably not. Where that comes from is the last SARS one tended to die out in the summer, and they think it was because the virus didn't do real well in hotter climates when it wasn't in the body. But even if you get under a duvet and you drink a bunch of warm things, or you get in a hot shower, your core temperature really stays pretty steady. If you get more than a few degrees out, you start to feel nasty, which is why fevers can be dangerous. But the best thing that you can do is just, if you come into contact, try and isolate yourself. It gets spread by particles that you spew out when you cough and sneeze. So don't cough into people's faces. I would hope people would already be at that point in our world right now, but I don't.
Somebody coughed in between two buns, and I nearly I was like, "Oh, I'm getting
no shit." Yeah.
It was like
a big guy.
It was a bit
no.
I think it was like a cruise shipper or something, and I was like, "Dude, come on, man," because he faced my way to avoid coughing in the face of his friends. And I was eating my sandwich, and coughs on me.
You're
and
thanks.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I did say something, but it wasn't mean.
No, so the main thing you can do are things that promote immune health. So the big one is sleep, diet, and exercise. That's the biggest things you can do to stay healthy. Also, you are probably not at risk.
Can you pick and choose? Can you do one of the three and you should be okay?
Just a lot of sleep. Yeah, no, just don't get out of bed. Another thing too is vitamin D and zinc. And I've been hearing a lot of people talk about vitamin C and echinacea. Those don't really seem to help a lot with the immune system, unless you're deficient, in which case you're going to have other problems. But vitamin D and zinc, vitamin D overall tends to promote immune health, and zinc particularly is used when your body builds antibodies. And so if you are deficient at all, by supplementing yourself a little bit with that, they can make sure that you have all the resources you need to fight the disease when you get it. So those have been actually in empirical studies shown to reduce the length and severity of flu and cold-like illnesses.
But living on an island like we do with like constant sunshine and so on, do you think?
Oh yeah, Union, you've got plenty of
vitamin
D.
D is already going to be a thing, right?
Yeah, but your zinc is still worthwhile, and there's also people who doesn't matter how much sun they get, their body just doesn't produce as much vitamin D. So they have pretty good tests for that if you know that you're deficient. But no, where you're at, I would probably assume that vitamin D is not a limiting factor, but zinc may be, and that might be something we're looking into.
So I'll change from the silver that I was buying from InfoWars to zinc now.
Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah. No, stop paying for Alex Jones's bail money.
And on that note,
well, thank you so much for joining us, Zach. It was a pleasure, and we might make this a semi-regular thing. And when the next pandemic comes through,
it's good to shoot the shit, man.
Yeah, let's just keep our fingers crossed we get another one soon, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That sounds good. You're looking well. I hope you're keeping well.
Doing my best.
I do have a quick good news, bad news to finish on. Is again down to what was cancelled for the because of the coronavirus, and there was actually a coronavirus conference that was cancelled because of the coronavirus. So it was called doing business under the coronavirus, and that had to get cancelled because of the coronavirus. But however,
no one could see that coming.
Yeah.
So in France, anything over 1,000 people, there has been no mass gatherings. 1,000 people, that's too much. But there's a French mayor that is standing up against the government, and saying we must not stop living. So he is granting the Smurf rally is going to go ahead. So
well, it's important we keep the critical things going, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're expecting 3,500 Smurfs to turn up. If you don't remember what a Smurf is, it's a small blue human-like creature who lives in a mushroom-shaped house in the forest, always under the threat of the evil wizard Gargamel. So yeah. So the Smurf rally is going ahead. So I want to finish on a positive note, and that's my positive note.
Smurf and ridiculous. I love how they
so much for your time
in that game or in that cartoon. They just didn't actually use the cuss words, but the implication was present in everything.
Everything. Yeah, exactly.
And was there not only one female Smurf?
There was.
No, we don't need to get into that. This is a family show, right?
Yeah.
So I wondered, out of 3,500 Smurfs, how many are going to be maybe?
That's a Pornhub channel.
That is a hamster.com. That's what it was originally made for.
I don't even want to admit that I've already seen Smurf porn.
Oh my God.
It's definitely. I was for research. It was for research.
You really have to enunciate that too, because that sounds way too close to snuff porn, which is a dark hole to go down.
Oh, that could be another one. We could go down the dark web.
Let's
What's
never
on the dark web?
Those movies and anything to do with it clinically depresses me. So yeah,
the fact they exist is depressing.
Yeah. Dude, we'll catch up with you in a couple of weeks, and we'll see if you're all good with that, and we'll see how things are going in Texas, and maybe we'll have some other science-related news that is not to do with a virus.
Yeah, find some fun stuff. It was great talking to you again.
Yeah, man.
And we're not judging anyone on what they're using their toilet paper for.
Exactly.
Just save some for the rest of us.
Yeah, exactly. All right, man.
All right, cheers, mate. Cheers.
Cheers.